Hello and welcome everyone to another Builder Series. I'm Scott Meyer, co-founder of Chipp, and we are thrilled to have a globe-trotting, mission-driven, tech-developing inspiration today. This Birmingham Dragon has his doctorate from Mid-American Baptist. He's a director of innovation and artificial intelligence. He makes us feel bad for not doing enough. He spent time living in Peru, Dominican Republic, Mexico, and craziest of all, Virginia. He's taught at universities. He has his doctorate in theology. And most importantly, he's helping faith-based organizations look at using technology. The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only Don Barger, welcome.
Yeah, so I don't know if I can live up to that intro.
Oh, you can. You are living beyond it. I mean, you worked for 27 years for International Mission Board. I don't know anyone who has stayed somewhere that long and is on the cutting edge. Like, how have you brought new technology to a seemingly a long-running kind of mission-driven organization?
Yeah, so we lived overseas for a long time, and my kids grew up overseas. I spent I used to could say half my life overseas, but I've gotten kind of older now, and it's not half my life anymore, but almost half my life overseas. And so I love other cultures and love understanding people and love to just share my faith with other people of different cultures and different places. And from the innovation side, I've just always worked in that space. Like when there's a challenge, there's a problem, I always think, okay, what if we did it this way? And I would say that I love it when somebody says you can't do something. I'd rather they just say you can. But whenever somebody says we just can't do that, that's not possible, I immediately, in my brain started thinking, okay, how can we do this? How can we make it work? And so I think that this inquisitive mindset of how might we solve these problems is a pretty cool thing that I get to do now, just leading our innovation team. So
Yeah, and that's amazing.
The IMB's got like a lot of people all over the world, and I've got a really small team where we just try to think out ahead. Used to think like, how could we think 5 years ahead? I'm struggling to figure out what we're going to be next year with the rate of change that technology is giving us. So yeah.
No, that's amazing. And I think, we met at a conference, Missional AI, with a lot of organizations using technology for kind of faith-driven missions. So tell us how IMB is doing this. I mean, you're doing innovative things with Facebook ads, starting conversations. You have a whole apparatus to communicate around the globe. So how are you using AI to have a more global reach?
I think the AI should just be embedded in absolutely everything that we're doing and everything that everybody's doing. And I told somebody a year, maybe I'm a little more aggressive, maybe it's 2 years from now. There's a point coming very quickly where we're going to look back and say, how did we do this without what we're doing now? It's sort of like people who are growing up and they've always had iPhones and they think, wait a minute, you mean you didn't always have a phone with you? You didn't always have iPhones? And I think that's where AI, particularly in robotics and different things, it is going to have such a tremendous impact. So we have to think about how this impacts what we're doing today. This last week, or a couple of days ago, using Chipp, I built out a tool that some of our teams here use that answer a lot of questions. So like people will call in, they'll have questions. And as they have questions, there's this plethora of information to pull from. And they had like a 65-page FAQ. And it was trying to find, okay, how do I find this right information? Who's the right person to get them in touch with? And so just in literally like half an hour, I sat down with the product owner, the person who has the subject matter expertise. She gave me this 65-page document. And I was just talking through, listening to her explain the problem. I was able to build out a tool using Chipp, and she's looking at it going, this is incredible. Like it'll do everything you need it to do. Even built out some training for like, how do you de-escalate something that's kind of getting confrontational? And so it'll role play. You can role play different cultures, or if a millennial's meeting with a boomer, and how might the boomer be interpreting what the millennial is saying, and how might the millennial be interpreting what the boomer is saying. And it does paint with a broad brush, but it helps people create empathy for how they're being perceived when they say certain things. So
That's amazing.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's incredible. So like you have such international expertise. I'm curious, are you seeing different uses of AI across cultures, or how is it helping maybe bridge cultures, whether it's translation or other things that is important for your work?
Yeah. So I do think that translation that's kind of low hanging fruit, right? We use some other technologies outside of Chipp. Sorry, Scott. We do use other AI tools as well, but there's one that I use called Polyglossia. It is so awesome. As someone is speaking on the stage or preaching or sharing or teaching, whatever they're doing, the person in the audience can scan a QR code, and whatever the person's saying on the stage, they're seeing live just on their phone or on their device in that other language. So think about like subtitles, but are instantly created. And you can even train it to make it always respond in a certain way. And those things are just transformational, where in the past, it would be very difficult to have 5, 10 different languages in a training session without really expensive translation happening. Now that's pretty easy. Now, what we don't have yet is like sign language, and I would love it. I mean, I'm dreaming of the day where we offer like text to sign that's really accurate and does well, but it's a little more difficult to do.
Oh, that's amazing. So one challenge that a lot of businesses have with AI is getting people on board. And I have to imagine an organization that's been around as long as IMB, like you have a challenge of change management. So how have you gotten other people as excited as you are and help them sort of start tapping into AI?
I would say not everybody is as excited as I am, but a lot of people are very excited. And I don't know if you've seen the Shopify memo that the CEO of Shopify and then later on a few other CEOs have come out with them. I really like what they say in those is that it really AI just needs to become part of what we are, what we do. I just had this discussion yesterday with one of our teams here, is that we need to create like lunch and learn sessions in our home office, which is not where most of our people are. But for those of us who are here, like on a monthly basis, let's just come together. Let's highlight, hey, look at this cool tool we built. And that takes 5 minutes. And then sit around tables and say, okay, how are you using AI? What are you seeing as a breakthrough? How have you saved time? How have you become more, not just more efficient, because that it's not just about becoming more efficient. It's about having more value, like doing the things that are you get joy from, and then offloading the junk of just reading through and, going through manually a document and pulling out certain words. Like AI can totally do that and can do it much faster than we can. So I think introducing opportunity for people to talk about what they're doing, share with each other what they're doing, and learn from one another. I come from a training background. I did training for over a decade. AI is not something that we need to develop a bunch of training to do, my opinion. I think that it's sort of intuitive once you get into it. When you start seeing how other people are using it, you will get excited about how I can use it. If you think you're going to go watch a bunch of LinkedIn Learn videos and all of a sudden know how to write prompts, you're going to learn how to write prompts when you write prompts and they don't work and you keep trying to get the AI to do something. It's a little bit like trying to train a dog to, fetch or roll over. You got to keep trying different ways until one day you get it. Oh, now that's how I do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that idea of lunch and learns and just getting people building. So you are a master at coming up with ideas for AI tools. Some of the things you've built on Chipp, we'll show in just a moment, are incredibly unique. So how do you come up with these? Like, what's your process for saying, oh, maybe I could build an AI for that?
So I think that having had a lot of problems in my life and had to try to solve things, I kind of understand the business case for a lot of uses of AI. One night I was flying I think this was February. I was flying from Washington, DC to London. And as I got on the plane, I wasn't very sleepy. It was an overnight flight. And I had I had a lot of space because I had a row to myself. So I'm not going to disturb anybody. I want to see how many things I could build on this flight. And it was when I first started playing with Chipp. And so I was pretty new to using the platform. I had played around with it, but this is really getting into it. And I built over 40 chatbots on the flight from DC to London. And I think the first ones I built kind of stunk. And the last ones, I'm like, okay, I'm getting pretty good at this and amazed that I can get it to do some of the things I'm getting it to do. And I think the challenge is just understanding what the problem is, asking the right questions. What is it we're trying to solve? And then solving that problem. And to me, if you can't have a question and ask the questions, then you're probably not going to be successful. On my wall right here in front of me is a quote from Albert Einstein. It says, if I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. Well, I don't need to spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem, but I do need to define the problem very well. And then building out the solutions pretty quick. I don't find that building the solution is not the challenge, just coming up with the right questions to ask.
That's amazing. Well, let's look at some of the things you've built, and that'd be a great way to start.
Yeah.
So
I mean, some of them are, I've built a ton of things, and I almost was going to say to you, yeah, my hobby is sitting around at night thinking about how to come up with new toys or new chatbots. One of the things that I did, and I showed you this, and I think you were like, that's crazy. But this is,
I got mine right
you
here.
got one. You've taken my idea. Look at
Stole
you.
your
Great.
idea.
So this is a chatbot called FaithBot, and it's faithbot.io. It's an NFC chip, and you scan the chip, or you just take your phone and tap it. And as you tap it, it opens up the bot, and it just goes. So like on my phone, it's just opening up FaithBot right now. If my Wi-Fi would cooperate, and it just opens up the bot. And so, QR codes have been around a lot, and we still use a lot of QR codes, but people, if you go to a conference and you start using this, like you give out QR codes, they throw those away. But this has a little heft to it. I mean, it feels like a credit card. It's hard, and it's got an NFC, and it's kind of novel. And so I thought, hey, I'll try this. And before the tariffs, I could get these for about 8 cents each. They're a little bit more than that now, but hopefully the price will come back down. They're hard to find is the problem. Most people are not importing them, and that's the problem. But I went to Missional AI, handed out like 100 and something of them there, went from there to Mississippi, did a conference on AI for William Carey University, gave them out to several pastors there. And I checked yesterday, and I think we're up to 14,000 users of FaithBot,
Wow.
which I'm like, how in the world this has not been out that long. And it's a really cool bot because FaithBot, you can just ask it any question you want. And it's just going to answer questions about the Bible, about faith. And it'll always answer, not like my opinion, it's always going to answer using the Bible and using scripture. And so we can play around. If I can figure out how to share my screen.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love this idea
Share
of
this.
physical and digital, right? I did the same thing based on your experience, and we have a bot to learn about Chipp, right? So at a conference, they can hand these out, and then people start chatting with it.
And I think it's a really cool way of doing that. So we're going to try to do this where I'm sharing this, and it's going to probably.
And you have a son who's also very innovative, and he's
Jackson, my son. He's in pharmacy school, and I was with him for a couple of days, and I showed it to him. He's like, "Oh my goodness, this is so cool!" And I'd been using Chipp to like build out test review for exams and stuff. Like you can just drop in the PowerPoint, and it'll just sit there and quiz you and help you learn. Which, if you get me started on like how we need to transform higher ed or even K-12, like we need to embrace AI, and then how we evaluate learning, knowledge transformation has to be more than write a 3-page essay and then griping because people use ChatGPT to do it. Like we've got to transform how we do that. That's not the purpose of this one, but so like here's FaithBot, and you can ask it any question. Like here's one of my favorite things: help me craft a Bible story, and it'll ask. Let's ask Jesus calms the storm, and then here's the story. It'll just tell you the story. Do you want me to explain it? Yes. And it'll come through, and it gives like the reference for everything. And here's the story. It'll explain the story to you. You identify people that maybe from a different culture would be difficult for understand. You can put yes in Bible translation, be like key terms or key concepts that would be difficult for people to understand. And so we could kind of go through and highlight some of those. You can ask FaithBot, this is kind of cool. Like I'll be in a small group and somebody's going through like Exodus, and they're saying something, well, I don't know that that's what that says. So you can say, help me evaluate a particular scripture. And you can just say Exodus 12. I don't know, just come up and say, and it'll talks about what Exodus 12 is, just summarize our chapter and the teachings. And it'll come in and it'll just give you information about that. And if you were to say, like, there's a term that you don't understand, so it's kind of outlining it for you. You can say, explain the Passover, and it'll always kind of come through and kind of explain it. So a cool study guide, study tool that you can use. And then related to FaithBot, so that got me thinking about, I'm just going to highlight 3 things.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
But it got me thinking about something like Bible pictures. And so I don't even know why I created this one, but thinking about, well, create an image for a Bible passage. So let's say Jesus calms the storm. That's the one we're going to look for. And it's going to, let's create an image for number 3, rebuking the winds and the waves. And then this is something I've added last night. Like, what do you want it to look like? What style of image do you want? And so let's do number 7 is my favorite, the superhero style. And so it's going to
How
create an
exciting.
image. Yeah. So it'll create an image of Jesus calming the storm in a superhero style.
Amazing.
image.
Yeah. And you can see this could be used in,
Yes.
PowerPoints at church as coloring activities for Sunday school, just
So,
adding to a blog
yeah.
post.
So like number 1 was a coloring book page. So like if you're teaching small children, and it just doesn't have to be just about Bible stuff. I mean, you can come up with any idea, any concept, and it'll create images for you. I mean, this could be your coloring book that you laid out for people, and then you can make it manga. So yeah, so this was a pretty cool project. And I mean, I just created this one night while I was watching television. So just my wife and I, and this one, I think they've got a little, I don't know what's going on there. It's like they've got rat people in the boat. You can try again on that one because that one is not very good. But it's just fun to create resources. And in the past, you may have spent a lot of time like trying to photocopy or trying to find something. So yeah, so wow, that's a really cool one.
Yeah.
And then color pastel. I mean, these are just, if you can imagine a style, it can create that and that style. So
Yeah.
So that's it. So
Wow.
So then let me show you like my favorite one. So like, I don't know, last night or night before last, I'm a huge coffee snob. I mean, like enormous coffee snob, and lots of really cool, good coffee. Don't drink bad coffee.
Life's too short to drink.
Life's too short to drink bad coffee. And so I created a coffee coach, and it's an interactive chatbot designed to help you become a coffee snob like us. So at first I was just creating it to think about, okay, these are 3 ways of making coffee, and then walking someone through, like, I'm new to AeroPress, or I'm new to a pour over or a Chemex or flour or a origami pour over or something. So I created it for brewing methods, but then I thought, well, there's a bunch of different coffee grinders. You kind of get the right grinder. And then what about coffee beans? And then different types of roast of different coffees. So I created this, and it is so cool. Like you can come through and so let's say you wanted to learn how to use a Keurig. So you would choose that, and it would come up and say, I question your life choices, but I can still walk you through the process of making a bad cup of coffee using a Keurig. To get started, you'll need to plug the machine in and turn it on. Yes, I've done that. And then it comes up and it says, well, we'll get a medium. So most of them are a lot longer and they work through a lot more process. This is kind of funny one. Now press the brew button, wait for the machine to put coffee, pour the fresh brewed coffee into your favorite mug, go to the sink, pour out the coffee, make better life choices. Life's too short to drink bad coffee. Coffee in the K-cup is old, stale, and the cheapest quality grown. It's hard to even call it coffee. If you like a Keurig, you may have a caffeine addiction or problem. Now choose a different one. So then you would go to like, let's use a Chemex.
This is a great example of how with Chipp you control the output, right? Like ChatGPT would never be so snarky.
No, I mean, I totally built this out using like markdown language, which is not that hard to do. So, and then it'll walk you through, how to do a Chemex, and it goes, so it even tells you, how to do your burr grinder, if you're using this grinder, what press you're doing. And then it tells you the 1 to 15 coffee ratio for water. So 33 grams coffee. And then how hot is I'm going to walk through this really quickly. So you'll
that's awesome. And I think it's a great example of like building stuff for yourself, even fun things like this. It actually is training you to build other things, right? Knowing how to walk through coffee. Now you're ready to walk through marketing or data analysis or biblical references,
right?
All the same learning.
So the cool thing about this, because I do make a lot of coffee. I mean, I probably make about 20 pour overs a day. I even geek out to have like a coffee refractometer you can't see my thing, but this is thing that when you put a little sample of the liquid coffee in it, and it tells you, how to do your coffee better. So, but if you don't have that, you can say, hey, my coffee's a little bitter. And whenever you say that, it'll tell you maybe how to make it where it's not bitter anymore. And so maybe your brew time's too long, maybe your beans are the problem, or maybe your grind size needs to change. And so then you can tweak it one thing at a time. And as you tweak it, then it will, make it a little bit better. So those are 3 examples of probably 150 things I've built over the last few months.
Yeah. Well, so much is possible with AI. And one thing I know you've talked about, would love to have you close on, is the power of using, consumer grade products for specific like faith-based organizations or small companies. So Just talk a little bit about that, because I think this is sort of an interesting point where you don't need to have a tool specific for your industry. You can take something and make it specific.
Yeah. So we're in a weird space because to just go to like a chat GPT out of the box, I like to tell people if it's free, you're the product. I'm not the one that created that. It's been around for a long time, but it's really true. Like if you are just using chat GPT and you're not paying anything, or even if you're paying, if you don't go in there and explicitly tell you don't learn on my prompts, then you're training their data. And if you're working in a company, religious, faith-based or not, I mean, any accounting firm, law firm, medical, you really shouldn't be using these tools that are not vetted and you don't know what's happening to your data. Because if you do, you have severe data leakage going out. So we're pretty risk averse. And so we work really hard on making sure this stuff is used safely. Even in the chip environment, like we do some of the stuff that's outwardly facing, is public stuff, but then there's other stuff where we're using chip with Prediction Guard in a single tenant where we're using private models, our open source models, but are hosted where we're the only ones using it. You can even use chip in that environment where it's safe. Not that this isn't safe, but it's just one or 10 more layers of security that you lay on top of it. You can explain that better than me.
Yeah.
I think though that for us, having a safe solution and a way that to help people, there's this balance of keeping it so simple that you don't need to write Python scripts to create solutions. So that's got to be there. But then at the same time, the security's got to be there. I like to say you've got 3 levers you can pull on this, and it would be security, cost, and performance. And so if you want to have the highest performance, you're not going to have the cheapest cost. And for us, like security is going to always overrule those other 2 things. And so it's going to be a balance of how you can do that. And
Yeah.
I want to really quickly, before we end, I'm going to really quickly share my screen one more time, just in case somebody isn't familiar with Chipp or how hard it would be to build out this coffee guide. I'm just showing you what goes into that. I can make it bigger so you can see it.
Yeah. So this is the prompt. This is
That's
an
the
instruction
prompt.
where you tell it what to do. Yeah. You can find your snarky section where
Yeah.
if they choose Keurig.
If the user chooses Keurig, I question your life choices. And so this one is a little bit of yes or no, particularly on the Keurig one, because I don't really want people using Keurig. So
Yeah.
I didn't really give a lot of instructions. But then if they want to learn about coffee beans, and it goes through all these different things about region and origins and terrain, and if they want to learn about coffee grinders. So obviously someone who's not a coffee geek like myself probably couldn't write this prompt to this level. But like, I know the kind of things that you need to know in order to make a good cup of coffee. And so I built this prompt out. This is a long prompt. And then there's some primary instructions. I don't know if there's.
And then you added some YouTube videos, it looks like.
I did. Yeah. So I went in and I found a couple of my favorite coffee folks who teach about certain brew methods.
Yeah.
And I just let it crawl the web or find those YouTube videos and just bring in that knowledge base that they could go and watch that video themselves.
Yeah.
Too.
No, that's amazing. Well, to close, we're excited to have you come to ChippCon in July. Tell us a little bit about what you're going to share, why people should come listen to you at ChippCon.
I don't know. You invited me. No, I'm a huge fan of simplicity. And I think we've played around with a lot of different AI tools, things that you build from scratch. I don't write Python scripts. I tried to learn last summer. Well, I didn't really try. Like I spent an hour on a Saturday. I'm going to take this course. And then like an hour into it going, why am I doing this? I don't have time for this. It's interesting, but it's a rabbit hole that I would go down and I don't need it. And so we have other people who do that. Now also I can use AI to write the Python, put it in. And if it doesn't work, I'll drop it back into AI and say it didn't work. And it comes back and tells me how to do it. So I don't need to do that, but I really like tools like Chipp and some other ones that we use that just make it accessible. You saw the back end there, like write your massive system prompt and you can use AI. The other piece that's built into Chipp is you just write out the best you can, your system prompt, click one button and it rewrites your prompt for you. So you can get the system prompt, the adding of knowledge sources. You don't need to go create a vector database anymore, which that just was a bar too high for me. So now that I don't have to do that, I can just go in and select those. Those are pretty good.
Yeah. So come to ChippCon. You can go to chip.ai/ChippCon to register. Free for everyone, live in Fargo. Don will be there. It's so great to chat on the camera here, and
Yeah.
I love seeing what you build. If anyone wants to take his apps or get versions of it, just reach out to Don or myself. We'll make sure you get
Sure.
the templates in the right places. So
Absolutely.
thanks for sharing and thanks for building.
Nope. Thank you.